about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
Welcome back to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. Dahlia. So 1-877-DOCDALI. So years ago, we had a Wii. I think it was a Wii, where you tried to balance on one of those platforms and you would play. And then I remember either after an upgrade or something, it would automatically record your last final move. So here I am, in my pajamas, right, or wearing Corey's boxer briefs, right, trying to hit the tennis ball, and the camera's catching me like that. And I'm like, I don't want there to be any videos taken of me. I don't want this. And I stopped playing it right away because I'm like, wait a second, there's a camera? They're videotaping me? I just didn't trust it. And then when I heard that pacemakers could get hacked, and I've really started to limit my tech. I don't have one of those. I remember I bought for my husband for his birthday. By the way, it's Corey's birthday today. Happy birthday, Cupcake to G. I remember for his birthday, I got him one of those Google Assistant or Alexa Assistants or Echo or whatever. And then it would be like listening to us. And then you heard that it could listen. And I was like, oh, no, I don't want that. No. So no. But I guess we're forgetting that we have some things that could still be hacked, like your robot vacuum. So this story caught my eye. Apparently, there's a software engineer who wanted to steer his new DJI robot vacuum with a video game controller. So he was kind of playing around with it, going, it would be really cool for me to be able to connect my video game controller to this and then be able to operate it. This is being reported by Popular Science. So while he was building his own remote control app, Sami Asdufal reportedly used an AI coding assistant to help reverse engineer how the robot communicated with DJI's remote cloud servers. However, he soon discovered that the same credentials that allowed him to see and control his own device also provided access to live camera feeds, microphone audio, maps, and status data from nearly 7,000 other vacuums across 24 countries. According to Popular Science, the back-end security bug effectively exposed an army of internet-connected robots that in the wrong hands could have turned into surveillance tools, all without their owners ever knowing. Now, he was stand-up. He didn't want to exploit it. He shared his findings with The Verge, quickly contacted DJI to report the flaw. DJI tells Popular Science that the issue's been resolved, all good, but whoa. So somebody who's being creative, messing around with his own thing, could inadvertently affect all of us. Now, I don't know much about our phones, but is that also a possibility? Or somebody figures out how to kind of play around with it, and then, I take my phone with me everywhere. I feel bad for you guys. If you end up seeing things that you don't want to see. I take it with me in the bathroom. I take it with me, when I go when I change. I just take my phone with me everywhere. And we do have a robot vacuum, but I don't think it has a camera. See, everything these days has cameras, and who knew? And and it's interesting because as a physician, when we were told we had to transition from paper charts to computer charts. Okay, remember, I'm a kid from the 80s, so War Games, and then the 1992 movie was the 92 Terminator 2. So I always have a distrust of computers. And I also think that there's always somebody smarter out there than, people with the company. So I always feel like somebody's going to hack it. And so when I saw that doctors were getting in trouble for not maintaining records and the privacy of the records, or keeping them from somebody looking at them, as soon as we were mandated to go electronic, I'm like, well, not only are the patients could be screwed, but we could be screwed. Somebody could hack into the system. And then if they do, it's on you. You could lose your license in a heartbeat if somebody hacks in and accesses your patient's medical records, because it's on you to ensure that you pick the best program. And the HIPAA violations and the fines are astronomical. Now, fortunately, we haven't had too many hacks, but there have been hacks. And we're so now reliant on computers and tech, and people want the tech. They want like, look at these AI caricatures. You could have ChatGPT or some of these AI companies build an image of you based on everything they know about you. Well, they learn. And now they know things about you that you're like, really? The toilet seat's up in the back of how do you know I leave the toilet seat up? I mean, yeah, it's frightening. And we're allowing them to learn. We're allowing them because we want the stupid picture. We want the caricature. We want the Barbie doll. And yes, I have those posted because I wanted to see what I would look like as a Barbie doll. I never liked playing with Barbies. I never liked really Barbie. I really wasn't into that. I was more into the, mud pies and big wheels and things like that. But yeah, I wanted to see what I would look like as a Barbie, and I like it. I really, really like the way the boobies look. I think they're, a lot. I could exercise better if I had those boobies than these. But, that's neither here nor there. But, for those of you that are really, really embracing the tech and using these home robots and now these interactive humanoid things, and understand that somebody could be watching you. Wasn't there, I think, a vacuum? Somebody was in the toilet, and their little robot vacuum went into the toilet and caught them on camera. I would just use a regular old school vacuum. I could do the 1960s thing anytime. Those vacuums actually worked really well. Not that I was around the 60s, but boy, those were power machines. The 1-877 Doc Dolly, don't go away.
This is an urgent announcement for anyone that's $10,000 or more in debt. Before you make another minimum payment, you need to know there are special programs that can completely free you of your debt. Total Financial Freedom can help you become debt-free in months instead of years. Resolve your credit card debt, signature loans, department store cards, internet loans, and timeshares. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020 for a free consultation. For 16 years, Total Financial Freedom has helped thousands get out of debt. You can feel confident when calling because Total Financial Freedom is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. Battling for years and years stuck in the endless cycle of minimum payments could take decades. You have the right to get your debt resolved and substantially reduce your monthly payments. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020. That's 800-878-6020. 800-878-6020.
Let's face it, guys. We're living in times where the truth is becoming more suppressed and censorship is increasing at an alarming rate, especially on social media platforms. It's Clyde, and I want to tell you about a safe and secure digital playground we put together just for you. It's Aftermath.media. You get access to thousands of Ground Zero archives and podcasts, along with our private social media groups with your basic membership starting at only $7 a month. Each subscription includes tech support, access to the RSS feeds, along with our own chat room and Telegram channel. In addition, the premium membership includes research study groups, webinars, a document and movie library, a live video stream of Ground Zero, a monthly Zoom chat with me, and other bonus content. Be sure to check out our yearly specials as well. Sign up today while you're thinking about it. Sign up at Aftermath.media. Again, that's Aftermath.media.
back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So this is what I would recommend Trump do tonight at the State of the Union and what I recommend he doesn't do. Okay, so Trump has made some huge gains coming back into presidency. He made huge gains in his first term, but the second term, securing the border, lowering gas prices, Dow Jones, the stock market at its highest levels, getting the hostages back, and ending the war in Israel and Gaza, and starting to work towards peace in the Middle East. There are so many accomplishments that he did. And so he should remark on that. Absolutely. I know people are like, oh, he's going to talk about that again. Well, he should. Those are huge. And people forget, all the things that he's done. He was able to get some temporary ceasefires with Russia and Ukraine, but there's still work that needs to be done. And so if I was the president and I was advising the president, I would open with all the things that he's done and the administration has done that have been amazingly successful. Then I would introduce all the guests that, introduce why they're there. And, he could incorporate them into that, into his speech, and then go, this is what we need to do. This is where we need to work together. And it's going to be, I think, a good speech. I hope he doesn't go 2-3 hours. The State of the Union speech is usually a long one. I was amazed that Biden could do it without. I'd have to pee. They're long speeches. I don't know if you have a catheter in or when you're that age, but that's because I would have to go and pee. I'd have to take an intermission in the middle of it, saying, "Okay, guys, just hold that thought, get some popcorn, I'll be back." But Trump does like to go on, and he does like being in front of the camera. I got to tell you, I'd rather have what Trump is doing than we never got to hear from Biden. Biden quickly shuffling away, and then you're just waiting for Karine Jean-Pierre or somebody to try to fill in the gaps. So I'd rather we hear from the commander-in-chief. But I wouldn't make it go 3 hours. I think people are going to get tired. They're not going to listen, and get the content you want out. And then this is your speech before the midterms to delineate whether the media wants to report it or not. But it's your opportunity to delineate everything you've done and remind them about how awesome that is. Don't forget to bring up the Trump accounts. How every newborn baby now has an opportunity to have a IRA or Roth, have a retirement account, college account. Huge. How you got medication prices down. How you restored recruitment in the military. How people wanted to come back. How you saved money with Doge, how you found wasteful spending, how you are reevaluating, with departments in the government and making government smaller as it pertains to the Department of Education, how you're saving taxpayers' money with the big, beautiful bill, how there's no tax on tip, no tax on Social Security, no tax on where that came from is he did a poll. The no tax on tips came from a waitress, he said, that was waiting on him in Las Vegas, and he asked her about the tips. And then the no tax on Social Security, he was at a speech and he said, so hey, what do you guys think is the most important? No tax on Social Security, no tax on this. And he said he saw everybody really also like that. He just included all of it. That's huge. It's about time somebody thought of doing that. So that's great. Now, I would not bring up the stolen election again. However, the idea of voter ID, and you saw, I don't know if you saw that article where Mamdani is against voter ID, but he required individuals who were going to do the snow plowing for the emergency snowstorm. He required ID. Right? I mean, so you need ID to volunteer to plow snow, but you don't need ID to vote. And so, I would not bring up whether an election was stolen or not, but I would bring up you need ID. Is the country ready to just then not require? I mean, voting is one of the most important things we do. And so if you need ID to get beer, you need ID to get marijuana, you need ID to check into a hotel, you need ID when you get pulled over speeding, you need ID to enter school and enroll for school. You need ID to go into the hospital. You need ID, all the time. Either we also include ID for voting, or we reevaluate if we're doing ID for any of that. But you can't say you need voter ID to plow snow, or you need ID. And so I think that is huge. And yes, he should bring it up. But I just want to bring up stolen elections. If you do, want to suggest anybody against that, what are their motives? It's interesting. I'm seeing all these memes of a woman standing there holding her driver's license or her ID. And you see a whole bunch of Democrats behind her clapping. Like they're surprised that a woman was able to get an ID, because what Democrats have been saying is women won't be able to vote because they won't be able to get an ID, or they won't be able to match because they got married and changed their name. Well, if women are struggling to get an ID, then why don't you want to help them get a driver's license and help them get hospital care if they need to, or be able to check into a hotel or get a rental car? So you don't want to help these women for anything else. But I mean, if they are really without an ID, we want to get these women IDs. And acting like there's certain populations that are just going to be completely at a loss as it pertains to navigation of life. If they have to get a voter ID, how are they renting an apartment or getting a loan on a house? So it's obvious. It's obvious why they don't want voter ID. And so, Trump can explain that. I think that's fine. I just want to bring up stealing elections, and how his previous election was stolen. But bringing up how we have to maintain integrity of elections. And as I said, my friend's kid, it was the first election he was voting in. He walks up into the voting precinct, and they said, "You can't vote. You voted already." He's like, "What are you talking about?" "Yeah, you voted in Colorado." He's like, I haven't been to Colorado. Somebody used my name? So we really have to fix what's going on here. And so, if he brings that up, I think that's fantastic. The military successes, the wars he stopped, bringing the hostages home, these are huge. Got to bring that up. The tariffs. He brought in billions of dollars with the tariffs. He was going to actually cut us checks. And he was going to hopefully reverse a lot of the screwing over that other countries were doing to us in terms of their high tariffs on us, and try to make them back down. And he did. He got these other countries to back down on what they were charging us, which is why even if SCOTUS reversed it, we still made huge gains because we got other countries to charge us less. So he's got to talk about that. He also has to talk about the border and how, how secure the border is, and bring up, even if it's pictures of some of these individuals who were in our country that Biden let in, that ICE was able to find and deport. There's going to be a lot of anti-ICE. There's going to be somebody probably yelling and screaming and whatever, but show what work they did. Now, it was horrible what happened in Minnesota. And I really, really blame the city of Minneapolis, and I blame the mayor, because they should have immediately had bystanders and protesters away from active operations, or armed. You can't, as a city, allow your citizens to go up into cops' faces or ICE agents' faces or firefighters. They have a job to do. Your job is to barricade and keep people away from the fire, away from the ambulance, away from the, ICE operation. And they failed to do so. And sadly, 2 people died. All right, it's going to be an interesting speech. Don't go away. We'll be right back. 1-877 Doc Dolly. Dr. Dahlia here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
We are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dolly, 1-877 DOCDALI. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Dr. Dahlia, Facebook, The Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. And big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen, and Daniel, who is working the dials and keeping things running smoothly. Thank God for Daniel. So years ago, we would have patients that were on polypharmacy, and doctors were being ridiculed and criticized for people being on multiple medications. And one of the reasons why patients were on multiple medications is they started to leave their family doc or their primary care provider, and they started to lose their provider. And so they would start going to other providers. And they would maybe go into an urgent care when they had one issue, would see the doctor across the street, go here, there. And then if they did make it back to their primary care providers are like, you're on 4 different medications for your blood pressure. You're on 5 different medications for your anxiety, your depression. Let's try to figure this out. Well, I'm taking ADD medication because I have ADD, but then I have anxiety, so I need anxiety medication. But then I get very tired when I can't sleep, so then I need something to help me sleep. And then in the morning I can't get up. And so we were trained as medical professionals to look out for that. And I can't tell you how many times I would have patients on pharmaceutical soup. And then I would have to kind of dig out the ingredients and go, so why are you taking this? Well, I'm taking this because it's offsetting this. Now, why are you taking this? Well, because of this. All right, well, then, you know what? That's okay. Let's go back. Okay, you're not getting good sleep. You're taking a stimulant, but you're tired the next day because you're taking this. Let's take a look at the times. There's an art. I am so grateful to pharmacists who know the pharmacology and would work with doctors on the pharmacology of things and the list of side effects. And then I'm also really, really grateful to the therapists and the psychiatrists who would work with patients if they were given a medication to also have therapy. In fact, when I was in school, I remember, I got yelled at a lot in school. They would yell at you a lot, but I remember one of us was getting yelled at in the group or during rounds, where one of us started a psychiatric medication, but we didn't at the same time prescribe therapy. And they said, what, you're just going to throw medication at them? Why aren't you also ordering some cognitive therapy or behavioral therapy or psychotherapy? Why aren't you getting them support? And so I always was taught that, if somebody needs a medication because they're having mental health issues, you incorporate, the psychologist. Just like with diabetes, I was taught, if you have a patient who has diabetes, also get them a nutritionist or make sure there's some nutritional counseling. So it's multifaceted and it's a team approach. Well, we're hearing, and actually I talked about this years ago, how benzodiazepine overuse is being overlooked. Let me see when I wrote this article. I wrote this article 2018, where everybody was looking at fentanyl and narcotics, but people on Xanax, Valium, Klonopin, Ativan, it was worrying me because a lot of people were taking those to sleep. If they couldn't get a pain medication, they would then take something to try to sleep through it. And benzodiazepines are even more dangerous than opioids with withdrawal because you could seize and die. And we have so many people addicted to benzodiazepines. I had back in 2018, and even before that, said, guys, we got to look at this. We got too many people on these anti-anxiety medications that can hurt them. Also, there was a case in town where I think a woman took her Xanax when she was coming off work in the morning. I think she worked a graveyard shift. And then she hit and killed 3 kids at a bus stop. I have to look at the details of that. But these medications are sedating. You're not supposed to drive on benzodiazepines. You're not supposed to mix benzodiazepines with muscle relaxers, with alcohol. It's dangerous stuff. And so when people withdraw from them, they can have anxiety, insomnia, restlessness, heart palpitations, headaches, tremors, nausea, hallucinations, psychosis, seizures. And like I said, they could die. And so, for years, a lot of us doctors are saying, look, we got to look at what people are taking and make sure they're managed properly and also make sure they can still get their medication. What made a lot of us doctors a little unhappy about Obamacare is if somebody loses their doctor, they lose that ability to get a refill. They lose that ability for that management. And the last thing you want is somebody going through benzodiazepine withdrawal. So here's RFK Jr. saying, look, we're having a lot of these people on these medications. How are we doing it right? Well, if you do have a primary care provider, they have been managing you for years. They have your therapist. They have you got a plan going on. We don't want to mess with that. But if nobody has a doctor anymore or nurse practitioner or PA, and they're going to telemedicine as their primary care and they're not seeing a therapist, or they're going to urgent care saying, I need something for anxiety, and they're going and then somebody's not watching them. And with what happened with Rob Reiner and his wife, Michelle, allegedly from his son, Nick, possibly, or being now tried for their murder, people are bringing up what was going on with his medications. Did he withdraw from his medications? Was a new one added? There's all this suspicions of there was something happening with the medications. And so as a physician, I understand that, yes, medications could cause side effects. Medications could worsen your psychosis. If not prescribed correctly and not a part of a comprehensive treatment plan, we could actually make you worse. In fact, we learned in medical school that the most dangerous time in terms of suicide is right as the person is starting to feel better with their medication. So, because the average depressed person won't move, won't get that motivation. But they said, watch that person closely because a week or two into their medication, if they're starting to feel good, that is sadly the most vulnerable, risky spot for them to commit suicide. So anytime I started a person on an antidepressant or anti-anxiety medicine, I made sure they followed up within 7 days, then within 2 weeks, then a month, and then every 3 months, and then every 6 months. Is that what's happening? Are patients having that access to medical providers? Are they getting that therapy and counseling? So I know there's a lot of criticism of RFK Jr. and him, and they're like, oh my gosh, he wants to take people off their anti-anxiety medication. I don't think that's the situation, but I think what he is echoing is what a lot of us doctors are saying is, look, you can't just throw a pill at somebody who's struggling with mental health. We have got to ensure that there's a comprehensive plan and they're getting support and they're getting in to a provider. Now, thank God telemedicine is bridging some of those gaps, allowing patients to talk to a medical provider. And some people can get the same therapist online. If they don't want to leave their house, at least they are talking to somebody. So it's offering great benefits. But on the other end, if patients are never seeing a doctor and they don't have one, or a medical provider, and they're just calling companies to get refills, they're not getting the management they need. And we are seeing these prescriptions skyrocket. Is it because COVID messed with our brain? Well, there's studies saying, yes, that COVID did mess with a lot of our brains. Is it because we're not exercising? It's because we're not going out and working and being around other people? Is it because we're isolating? It's because maybe we're watching too much TV and we're streaming too much? Is it because of all the fake food we're eating? Why is anxiety and depression on the rise? Is it because we fear we won't have a job because of AI? We need to address that because these medications can poop out. These medications can have side effects. And for some people, they work amazingly. But the big question I have is if we do have somebody who was unstable and now they're stable with that medication, how do we ensure they could always get their medication? What if their insurance switches in January? These are things that we need to be aware of and we need to be on top of. And so I do think we need to revisit what exactly are we doing and how are we managing people so they don't have side effects, so they don't withdraw, and they don't end up having worse mental health issues. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799 and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
As an organ donor, your story doesn't have to end. The good in you can live on. In fact, you could save up to 8 lives and restore sight and health for many more. Sign up right now online as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. You'll be happy you did. And just maybe, someone else will be happy too. Go to organdonor.gov. It saves lives. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
We are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. 1-877-DOCDALI. So, you watch Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, you see Gavin Newsom, you see Kamala Harris, and, I don't really know what the Democratic field is thinking and what they, Gavin Newsom probably has a much better chance of becoming the Democratic presidential candidate over Kamala Harris and Ocasio-Cortez. Ocasio-Cortez doesn't even know what's in the Southern Hemisphere versus the Northern Hemisphere. She's just not very prepared. It's kind of embarrassing. And I don't think people want her to represent America. Kamala Harris, again, she failed miserably in the Democratic primary. And if it wasn't for Biden choosing her as vice president, she wasn't popular, and she wasn't popular enough to win the election. So it's probably going to be Gavin Newsom. although he's got to really reevaluate how he talks to people. He, I guess, told an audience of black voters that he was like them, and claiming that he, had a low SAT, and that he can't read, and he can't read a script. I think what he was trying to say is he's not acting like he is, the most academic, the most gifted person. He's a real person. He's an everyday person. But the way it came across, it sounded racist, and it wasn't, and it was very poor choice of words. And that was not good. And then, of course, Sean Hannity says he thinks a 960 SAT makes him like black Americans. Let that sink in. And then Gavin Newsom starts cussing, saying you don't give a blank about the president. Anyway, he starts talking about the video that got retweeted or reposted that had the Obamas interposed racistly on apes. And I mean, it's been kind of very chaotic. And for the average moderate American going, oh my God, can we please just, get some peace and not have all this, going on. It's going to be a rough year, and there's going to be a lot of ups and downs. But, the topic keeps coming up about SATs and these entrance exams. And I know a lot of colleges did away with them because they thought that it was marginalizing groups. And when I heard that they were doing that, I thought that was insulting to the demographics that they thought they were trying to please, because every friend of mine, no matter what, every colleague of mine, no matter what race, gender, creed they were, did well on entrance exams. And so it's not an entrance exam, it doesn't necessarily suggest that only a certain group of people will do well. Now, I understand that there have been tests that might be, shall we say, biased, and that there were many individuals that, shall we say, noticed that there were that it wasn't something that the average American would be able to answer. So if you went through boarding school and you went through a lot of the more shall we say rich sort of educational pathways, you might have been able but an entrance exam to get to college should be pretty standard, and ensuring that basic math. And when we hear that there are people in Harvard needing to take remedial math, and Harvard used to be one of the hardest schools to get into, how are people getting into Harvard and not being able to do basic math? That just doesn't make sense. And so I think there needs to be some form of standardized testing to ensure that you got the education you needed from high school. Now, I do agree that there can be inequalities in schools. So I went to 12 schools, and it was amazing what I saw, the difference in priorities depending on the school. And I did see, many times, based on, depending on what that curriculum was, where there was just no growth, no progress. Yet I was at one high school of the 4 high schools I went to, because again, my folks moved a lot, and I was in the honors program, where they said, look, it's about SAT scores. So we are going to emphasize what you need to learn on the SAT, which is vocabulary. And I got to tell you, man, did they drill us with vocabulary. We had 20 new words, and we had to memorize the definitions. It was kind of brilliant how they should sell this, when they're doing SAT. Princeton Review could buy their techniques on how they got us to learn. Because my math score was 780. I was near perfect in math, but my English, so I ended up getting a 1350 the first time, and then I took it again and I got a 1450. And so my math score didn't have to improve, but my English score improved. And so my final SAT score was 1450. And I credited that to, I didn't really have a lot of good reading comprehension and all that because I'm too hyper. I don't have attention deficit, but I'm hyper. And I'm like trying to speed through the test and all that. But they would give us 20 new vocabulary words. We would have to memorize the definition. And then every test on Friday could test us from any of the previous vocab words. So you had to review at least 200 definitions and have them memorized. So I did. I made these little index cards. I flipped through them and I would memorize these. I would study these and I would ace the vocab test. And lo and behold, many of those words were on the SAT. So I noticed pretty early on that if you went to a school that decided to prioritize the SAT, you would do better. Which is why I really think we do have to have some sort of standardization. I love states' rights and all that, but I really think, as I've said before, schools need to be smaller core classes in the morning where you're not sitting around for 50 minutes getting a bed sore on your butt, where you're actually learning for 20, 30 minutes, then another topic, then you have your lunch, and then the afternoons are all practical learning. So these kids get exposed to farming, the trades, all the different all the different industries out there, depending on their age. And so by the time everybody's 16, they got a pretty good idea of what they may want to do in life. And then age 17 and 18 is when you get to get your trade you do your trade learning or your associate's degree. And by the time everybody's 18, they have either a trade certificate or they have an associate's degree. And there's your free college. So I think, although I think Trump is working on something, which sounds good too, we're going to talk about later this week. But you know, with schools saying, you know what, we don't need entrance exams because they could, but you know, there has to be basic proficiency. You know, people have been talking about getting rid of the boards for medical school. The problem with that is if somebody's going to be a physician, they have got to have proficiency. And it's really interesting because I'm starting to hear from some program directors and I'm starting to hear from even some of the residents where they went through medical school without ever doing like a pap smear or and then the first time they had to do it, they were already a resident. I'm like, why didn't you learn this in medical school? In medical school, I was delivering babies. We really had, and well, there's not enough cases. So the residents have to get the cases first. And I see a delay in the procedures and the proficiencies of medical students and hoping they could catch it up in residency. No, you have to have that baseline proficiency so that if you are going to be a resident, you know how to put in a central line. You know how to put in a catheter. You know how to calculate an anion gap. You know how to do a sliding scale insulin. And so, I think there's a way to test proficiency and to ensure competency of a skill without marginalizing populations. Now, maybe the SATs weren't perfect, but we've got to come up with something because we can't have kids going to college, especially Ivy League, that don't know their math. 1-877-Doc-Dolly.
Can you believe, with all the recent violent protests, looting, and destruction, some areas are considering either defunding or abolishing the police? At a time when America's neighborhoods need the protection of police the most, some elected officials would rather create more chaos by playing politics. If you're sick of elected officials caving in to demands of the radical left, you're not alone. It's time we stand up and declare our support for local police. The majority of police officers are important partners in protecting our God-given rights. If you prefer freedom over chaos, then learn how you can help protect the local police that serve your community. Call today and request your free Support Your Local Police info packet. Dial 800-JBS-USA-1. That's 800-JBS-USA-1. Request your free Support Your Local Police info packet by calling 800-JBS-USA-1 today.